Welcome to today's webinar, Calculating the ROI of Microsoft Fabric. My name's Sean McManus. I'm Field CTO representing data and AI for Netrix.
And I'm Tom Lilly, Field CTO for Cloud Solutions here at Netrix.
Today's webinar is the fourth in our cloud data series. Links to the previous 3 episodes will be available in the show notes if you want to go back and review those. Today, we're going to start by discussing ROI in general and the challenges with data modernization. This includes the goals of an ROI initiative, basics of an ROI calculation, and the reasons why there's such a push to data-to-state modernization. Then we'll move into applying ROI specifically to Microsoft Fabric. We'll discuss some of the ways in which Fabric is positioned to offer tangible benefits and how we can measure success. Then we'll move into looking at some industry trends at Fabric adoption and forecasted ROI and investment payback before moving to some real-world examples that represent different business approaches to Fabric and how they were able to achieve and measure success. Then finally, we'll move on to some considerations for calculating ROI specifically in your case and recommendations on how to get started. To start things off here, there's no single magic formula to capturing ROI. You do internet searches or large language model chats on that, and you're going to get back a whole bunch of complex formulas that, in my estimation, make the process more complicated than necessary. Our recommendation is to emphasize approach over the formula specifics. Every organization is different, and the use cases for Fabric differ too. Some are looking at it for strictly business analytics, some process automation, and still others are leveraging Fabric for AI forward solutions or system integrations. Start with your own organizational needs and work from there. So let's reduce down the complexities of ROI to its basics, a business value achieved for a magnitude of effort and cost expended. Business value can either be easily quantifiable, such as automation that reduces a headcount, or it can be more abstract, like things like improving data accessibility or enabling self-service analytics for a wider audience. Furthermore, data platform implementations usually have an increased cost attached. Sometimes there can be offset by savings elsewhere. Other times those costs are brand new. So making an ROI case is really just this attempt to reconcile these competing factors and being able to quantify your return. So why is this so important, and why are data estate modernization efforts becoming so widely pursued? To start off here, I'm going to throw some stats at you. First, 78% of data leaders are reporting pressure to demonstrate ROI on their data investments. Secondly, an average data organization uses 7 to 12 different tools across their estate. Data teams are now spending upwards of 75% of their time just on integration and maintenance versus doing innovative tasks. And finally, business users are waiting an average of 3 to 4 weeks for new data requests. So if you layer on top of that the more recent pressures to leverage AI, with current models and agentic AI implementations that now actually can provide real business value. Problem is, the biggest reason why these AI initiatives fail are because of poorly structured data estates. No governance, no optimization for AI. So businesses really need to be looking at their data first. When we talk about ROI with Microsoft Fabric, it's not just about cost savings. It's about enabling speed, productivity, and real business impact. So we can break this down into 4 key areas. First, let's look at the infrastructure. Fabric runs on a software as a service platform, which means that there's no servers to manage, no patching, no hardware headaches. Everything is cloud native. On top of that, it's a unified platform. So instead of juggling multiple tools, multiple licenses, multiple resources, you can consolidate everything under one roof. So if you're dealing with an on-prem data state right now, you're probably leveraging all kinds of different tools to be able to achieve your data engineering needs. Same thing with like a first generation Azure cloud service, multiple tools, multiple resources, multiple pricing models. With Fabric, all of that is consolidated under the hood. And by reducing that complexity, you can actually lower your technical debt and free up IT resources for more strategic work. Next is the speed. Real-time analytics means you can make decisions more efficiently, not days later, and that can really be a huge competitive advantage. Think about scenarios like in manufacturing or even other industries where knowing that information in real time can help you identify problems before they escalate. And then with AI-powered features, Copilot's integration with Fabric, you can uncover patterns and anomalies that you might otherwise miss. So you can start moving yourself from more of a reactive to a proactive decision-making approach. On the productivity side, the low-code and no-code tooling in Fabric empower business users to be able to build their own reports and workflows without waiting on IT. We mentioned self-service reporting earlier. And that'll just remove bottlenecks and accelerate delivery. Additionally, those integrated tools reduce the time spent moving and transforming data. So if you spend less time wrangling your data, more time acting on insights. And that leads to the real payoff, the business value. Better data quality leads to better decisions improve revenue and reduce corporate risk. So when you apply your ROI to specific use cases, thinking like retail demand forecasting, supply chain optimization, just to name a few, you actually start seeing tangible outcomes like reduced costs and improved efficiencies. I mean, overall, Fabric isn't just like a technology investment. You have to think of it as a business enabler. Fabric will facilitate that reduction in costs, but it'll also accelerate insights and boost productivity. And all of those things drive measurable value. Tom?
Yeah. And with that, we want to talk about what success looks like in Fabric. As Sean was just mentioning, there are a lot of different solutions and a lot of different capabilities that are built into the Fabric platform that you as an organization will want to take advantage of to make sure that you are able to justify the costs and the implementation of it, and you want to see what you get out of it, right? And the first one and the most obvious one for any data platform is the ability to make better data-driven solutions and data-driven decisions. So when you are looking at Fabric and when you are evaluating whether it's working for you as an organization, there are a couple areas that we highly recommend. One is looking at decisions that have been made if you weren't able to have that platform versus what you can with Fabric. And then seeing how much more quickly you can make those decisions as well. So for example, because you have this new unified platform on one lake as a data lake solution, maybe you've got some of the other capabilities enabled for real-time insights and data visualization, which we'll talk about. That allows you to make these better decisions. Sean was talking about retail and he was talking about manufacturing. So now I can go back and say, hey, we have this defect on our manufacturing line, or we're seeing a major spike or increase for this specific product. We as an organization can then more easily pivot and more easily implement any changes that are needed to address that. And in that way, we can make sure we're staying on top of what the rest of the organization needs from us as the business decision makers of the organization. So by being able to do that, we can make sure that we're staying ahead of the curve, that we're not behind the eight ball and we're not making reactive decisions. We're being as proactive as possible. And this can lead to greater sales. It can lead to happier customers, lead to happier employees. We want to make sure that we're taking all those things into account as we're talking about these data-driven solutions and making these data-driven decisions. That also ties a little bit into our automation side, because for a lot of automation, obviously we want to talk about things like real-time analytics and data ingestion and things like that. But the other piece to automation that also becomes really important is reducing what our day-to-day users have to do to maintain our data quality in our data lake or data warehouse or any of these data stores which obviously eventually worked their way into any visualizations that we're using as an organization. So look at how many hours of operating costs you're reducing by implementing some of these automations, some of these pipelines, and the ability to do automatic ETL for the data you're ingesting into the lake. That you don't have to update your semantic models manually. You don't have to have somebody clean and import CSVs. You don't have to have people go and export data from external systems. You can automate all those through pipelines in Fabric and make sure that that data is then housed in that singular location, which does become one lake. And then once again, being able to make quicker decisions and being able to, as an organization, determine that as the data quality gets better, that you are making better decisions as an organization. So once again, taking that automation, automating those ETL jobs, being able to ensure that the data is hygienic, that you don't have false data in there, you don't have empty rows, you're not skewing the data because you've got these ETL processes that are literally cleaning and promoting the data through your generally medallion architecture to ensure that everything is as it should be. So now you're not just making quicker decisions, you're making quicker decisions on better data and better, more systems that are integrated into that one lake platform as well. As Sean mentioned, we would be very remiss if we did at some point talk about AI. If you're not using AI, you're not evaluating AI, odds are that your competitors are, and you're going to be left in the dust. So by enabling Fabric and overlaying Copilot into that environment and other AI tools, now that's going to help give you that competitive advantage over your competitors. And this could be something as simple as natural language querying against your data estate itself, or it could be using the data in the estate to augment the data that's being returned by Copilot as its own generative AI platform. So keep that in mind. It's going to enable not only you, but also your workers and everybody else in the organization who has access to that data, some of the lower level decision makers that have that authority. And now they have the ability to actually interact with their data pretty easily and get those answers. Where, in the past, it's, they had to know how to do data visualization. They needed to know how to use Power BI or Power Query or pivot tables and pivot charts in Excel. And now we're getting to the point where they can literally just ask questions of their data and get those relevant and salient answers from your data lakes themselves. So making sure that you've got that, got those users enabled, you've got AI enabled as that overlay makes your users and your managers better at generally their jobs. We did talk about that cost of inaction as well. Once again, if you're not doing it, then your competitors are. If you're not doing it, think about all the time that you're wasting as users have to go and extract that data themselves. So I mentioned automation in the previous box that also talks on the AI side too, because now you don't need to go in and take a subset of data and put it into an Excel spreadsheet and then do your own data visualization. You don't need to make sure you're grabbing the data from the right date range or the right columns to make the right information and the right informed decisions. Once again, you can just ask Copilot what you want to do and what information you want to get out of it, and then it's going to give you that. So no longer do you have to waste all of that time or other people's time in creating these sort of custom reports. You can have Copilot, you can have AI do that for you automatically. Also being able to identify those opportunities for revenue generation. By being able to ask those questions of your data itself, you do have that ability to identify gaps within the organization that maybe you could be optimizing costs in other areas. Maybe you have a spike in SG&A for 1 month and you can go back and see why that was. And Copilot, once again, can suss out those facts for you in a relatively quick manner. So from a revenue generation perspective and overall from a revenue optimization perspective, once again, being able to use that natural language and being able to interact with your data as if it were another analyst will greatly reduce your time in having to have other people do that for you. And then finally, no data platform is complete without security. And this is one of the major things that we talk to our customers about, is the security and governance of your data platform and the data that's stored within there. For a lot of you that are watching this webinar, there's a good chance that your data lakes could contain PII or PHI or PCI. There are a lot of instances where you want to gather and sometimes anonymize or pseudo-anonymize that data in your data lake. There's sometimes where you just reliably can't do that. So we want to make sure that anything that is stored in that data lake that's in Fabric itself is properly secured, and when people access it, is properly audited. So no longer do we have this black hole of these external systems, or once again, these Excel spreadsheets that are floating around that have sensitive data that are on 36 different laptops throughout the organization that nobody knows about. We've got it all unified in that single platform that's integrated with Microsoft Purview as that governance solution that gives you the visibility alongside the rest of your estate. So by being able to take a look at how all of that is being unified and utilized and secured, you can greatly reduce the the stress of your governance, risk, and compliance teams. You don't have to worry as much about any random data that could be floating out there. So as an organization, one, that gives you peace of mind, a potentially lower chance that you'll run afoul of the people that care about where data is being stored and things like that. At the end of the day, it does make your lives easier if things are more secure. There are some very secure ways to implement Fabric. It's not just a wide open platform. I know we mentioned it is SaaS earlier, but we can lock it down. It does support things like row level security. It does support all the other security features you come to expect out of your Microsoft 365 environment. So when you are implementing Fabric, don't forget to look into the governance and the auditing capabilities, because this is going to give you that visibility into how people are using this data and what data is in there, and making sure that what people want to be in there is actually present and not more than you need to have. So with that, let's talk a little bit about Forrester and the total economic impact of Fabric. So in 2024, Forrester did run a study on the total economic impact of Microsoft Fabric, and these are some of the numbers that they came back with. On the left side, you can really see that the Fortune 500 is very much going gung-ho on Fabric. They've got a 70% adoption rate over the course of the Fortune 500, and they're seeing an ROI of 379% over the course of 3 years. Now, as Sean mentioned earlier, there are a lot of very complex calculations that go into the total ROI of a platform like Fabric. Thank you, Forrester, for doing all the hard work for us. But as you can see, there is a significant return on that investment that these companies are making as they are implementing Fabric to modernize their data estates. The nice thing about that is within about 6 months or so, we're seeing the full payback of Fabric in an organization. And that's in various different areas. So from a data engineering perspective, we're seeing about a 25% increase in productivity. That's all from unified tooling and reduction in manual processing. As we've been talked about, it's a unified SaaS platform. It's got automation built in. It's got native connectivity built into a lot of external systems. It allows for that ETL capability and low code, no code solutions to make sure the data is clean. All those go into reducing costs of data engineering. And once again, you're able to give time back to your engineers to go do the important things to the business and not just going in and cleaning up data sets. And then the same thing from a business analysis perspective is now your analysts can go in and more easily work with this data. They can build their own reports and their own dashboards and not have to, once again, take data out of the environment, massage it, update it, validate it, and then put it into Excel or put it into another solution. It's all unified. It's all in one single platform that is Microsoft Fabric. So you are getting quicker decisions. You are getting more self-service. You're getting your analysts the ability to be able to make their own decisions and to extract the data they think is going to be important, and then once again report that up within the organization. That obviously gives you better insights. So as your analysts build these reports that make more sense, as they get more queries from your executives and your decision makers to make these additional reports and to extract this information out of the environment, you're going to just get better data as you're working through a platform, as you're working through Fabric as a platform, and that unified sort of environment that once again also comes with that cost reduction. By putting everything into that single platform, by buying Fabric as a solution, by hopefully purchasing reservations to go with it, you can drastically reduce the not only month-to-month cost of hosting these solutions, but also the operating cost. You don't have to have a bunch of data engineers that all they do is work through, whether SQL is going to work today or whether your data lake is set up properly. All that's handled for you as Fabric in that SaaS platform. So these are all the things that Forrester has seen over the course of their study that they ran throughout a part of 2024, and what we've seen for our customers as well. But we don't just want to take that, or we don't just want you to have to take our word for it. We also have some real world examples here that we wanted to call out that Microsoft actually published as a part of their website. We've got links for in our materials below for this webinar. The first one we talk about is Lumen. For those of you who aren't familiar with them, Lumen is a major backbone and data center provider. A lot of people are probably working with them. Microsoft actually works with them as part of their Azure Fabric as well. But one of the things that they realized is that they've got old systems. They've got legacy platforms. They've got data silos. They have inconsistent KPIs. They've got a desire to better manufacture and to better utilize their data platform. That they've got slow ingestion. Maybe they've got processes that have to be run manually, so they can only update once a day or sometimes even once a week, or worst case, even once a month. They've got worst case limited visibility into their environment. They don't quite know what's going on until those updates hit. And then by the time they do, they're already out of date. That was causing some delays in their decision making, where they weren't able to be as agile as they wanted to. They weren't able to engage with their customers well enough because they weren't getting that data, back quickly enough, and they weren't able to, essentially do what they needed to do to grow the business based on those data-driven decisions that we've talked about, for a lot of this webinar. So they adopted Fabric, as you can expect, since this is a Fabric webinar. They unified ingestion, storage, and then analytics of their platform itself. So they started with an implementation of OneLake as a data lake and a data lake house to bring all of their underlying systems into a single unified data platform, and then overlaid things like Spark notebooks on top of it, and Power BI for data visualization to be able to clean and work with and promote and then eventually visualize that data. Obviously, the other big thing of that is make sure the right people have the right access to the data. So all this was done with the appropriate governance and security controls in place as well. The results of this are pretty crazy. They were able to save over 10,000 hours of manual work every year that was just being used to maintain the environment and to clean data and to build reports and all of the other things that go into managing a disparate data estate that we've been talking about as a part of this webinar. That is a crazy amount of time. That's over 5 people that have been able to better, serve the organization by not having to do some of this menial work. So that 10,000 hours of saved time a year is crazy. And then taking it into a lower time frame, 6 hours of data were saved per day that they didn't have to worry about data copying. Once again, that's 3/4 of a business day that was just dedicated to copying data into their old data estate and trying to make sure that that it works, that it's clean and it's ready to go. So saving that time obviously allowed them to make quicker decisions, allowed them to get a much quicker ROI on Fabric as a platform, which then reduced, things like, time to develop leads, It obviously increased engagement with customers. It reduced time to market for their marketing and sales teams. So as you can see, this is one of the many real-time examples, many of the real-world examples that we have for how Fabric can be used by an organization to make a significant positive impact to that company. We actually got a couple more. I'm going to turn it back over to Shean to go through. So, Shean, it's all yours.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Our second real-world example is really a powerful story of how Fabric is transforming healthcare delivery in underserved communities. So AR Care is a nonprofit healthcare provider. They operate across Arkansas, Kentucky, and Mississippi, and they've adopted Fabric to unify their data, streamline their operations, and expand their impact. So they faced another situation with fragmented data systems, manual processes that were taking them up to 6 to 8 hours a day to complete, and they had limited analytics. And that impacted their growth strategy, and it impacted how they could serve their customers. So their solution, Fabric solution there, was able to unify their data platform and consolidate on a very single source of truth, which was necessary to enable their real-time data access, automated reporting. So doing that, they were able to reduce those 6 to 8 hours a day of daily manual work, and that freed their staff to focus on strategic initiatives. So real big improvement there. So the results here: eliminate those manual tasks, be able to provide real-time daily updates every 2 hours. And the result of that was an improvement in their care coordination with their patients. As anybody who's had to deal with healthcare in the past, challenges with coordinating healthcare between multiple providers and being able to get things done quickly is a huge benefit for providers that can do that. They were also able to use Power BI to integrate that data and be able to visualize trends and be able to make decisions such as like where to open new clinics and other strategic growth areas. So their story is really a testament to how Fabric empowers companies to modernize their operations, even in situations like that where they're in a resource-constrained environment. And our final real-world example here is with Genpact. Genpact's a global professional services firm with over 125,000 employees in over 30 countries. And similar story, they needed a unified AI-powered data platform to accelerate their transformation and be able to deliver insights across their enterprise. They were also seeing fragmented dashboards, multiple data sources across business units, and a lack of a central data warehouse that could support modern AI capabilities. Same sort of thing here. Didn't have a single source of truth for their enterprise data. Different siloed departments going after different places for the data, and that all leads to a lack of consistency and a lack of confidence in the data that you have. So with their implementation, they were able to migrate 15 terabytes of data and connect upwards of 300 Power BI reports to Fabric. Rolling this out in phases, they're now fully operational across their entire organization and have over 1,000 active users that are now being able to leverage this data for advanced analytics and AI. So big results there. They were able to improve their operational efficiency, and they now have Power BI dashboards that are consistent and trustworthy across their entire enterprise. So their journey really shows how Fabric and Power BI together can enable that kind of modernization, and then furthermore provide AI readiness to drive enterprise-wide transformations of data estates. So if we take this together, bring all this together and consider how these real-world examples fit into the categories of business value we've established earlier. AR Care, they reduced manual effort, positioned their data for AI, while Lumen rolled out real-time insights, also eliminated a whole bunch of manual effort, and then reduced their infrastructure costs. Genpact, on the other hand, was improving data quality with their unified data model, reducing technical debt, and additionally providing for their level of AI readiness. On the cost side, we don't have all of these companies had to put significant investments into their projects, and we don't have the numbers specifically on those investments. But as you're starting to apply this to your own environment, here are some of the areas where you're going to need to make costing calculations and estimates in your environment. So Microsoft Fabric capacities typically start at $262 a month for an F2. We don't see a lot of customers that are able to stay on an F2 indefinitely. That's a fairly limited capacity, but we do have a link provided in the show notes here for the Fabric capacity calculator that can help you estimate what that capacity might be in your particular environment. And there's a number of different ways in which that capacity can be, and the costing can be altered over the course of your usage. So you can do reservations, you can do pay as you go, where you turn off your capacity when it's not in use. And then there's some different scale up options too, if you're using your capacity specifically for PySpark notebooks. So there's lots of options there. The capacity calculator will definitely help you walk you through some of that. Additionally, you're going to have data storage costs. That may be ADLS Gen 2, that may be some other storage in Azure. Those are things to keep in consideration. If you're using SQL mirroring inside of Fabric, some of those costs can be included in your Fabric capacity, just depending on the SKU level. So different things to consider there. And then finally, a larger chunk of your investment is going to be all around your development effort. So that may involve doing some training and upskilling of your internal resources, or looking to outside resources for help in doing implementation. So additionally, as you apply what you learned today with your organization, start with identifying your own challenges. Each organization is different, and business values, as we've seen with our real-world examples, can be achieved in many different ways. Look at what your challenges are and start there. Do your own research. Interview key stakeholders, learn their pain points, but don't be afraid to make assumptions. You're going to need to make assumptions here when you're starting to lay out your specific ROI calculations. Start laying out a future data architecture in Fabric. Use the calculator to estimate costs, and by doing research, you can start planning out what ETLs you're going to need, what your medallion architecture is going to look like, what your ultimate goals are in reporting, what you want models to look like for AI. Start planning that out ahead of time and putting costs along with that development. Then estimate your return. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good here. ROI, as we've talked about here, is not an exact calculation. And going back to the second point up here, make assumptions as needed. You're going to have to make some of those as you go along and start looking at this, because not everything that you're going to benefit out of Fabric is hard and quantifiable very easily. Sometimes you're going to have to make some estimations there and make some assumptions. And finally, make your case. Present this all together to your leadership. Budgets can and do open up when leadership sees ROI can be easily demonstrated. Kind of in summary here, data modernization efforts are made easier and with more value using Microsoft Fabric. ROI can be measured by breaking down and quantifying your business value and the cost savings that results from these projects that can ready your organization for AI and for data-driven solutions. Anything you want to add here, Tom?
No, not really. I think the other big takeaway to understand is that, as you're working through the implementation, that, obviously the costs may be a little bit higher as you're running through that. And that can skew that ROI calculation a little bit as you're, double paying for some features. But, it's worth it to stick with it, because as a unified platform and some of the, more real-time and better capabilities that you have here, Fabric does end up winning out in the end. So don't get discouraged if it does take a little bit of time to stand it up, or if you do have to double pay for a handful of things in the short term. But that is also an area where organizations like ours can help to bring forth that implementation and to help you accelerate that. So just keep all that in mind as you're implementing these solutions.
Yeah, and as Tom was saying, if you need any assistance in any of these areas, please reach out. We have several offerings in this space, and our Fabric Proof of Value is one which directly applies these principles to your own organization and your own needs. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Again, my name is Shean McManus, Field CTO for Data and AI. For Tom Lilly here, Field CTO Cloud. It's been a pleasure speaking with you both today. Good luck on your Fabric ROI journey. And again, reach out if you have any further questions. Thanks.
Awesome.